In the firehouse, every second counts. The best tool for the job? A well-rested firefighter. Dreamseat firehouse furniture, built for durability, designed for comfort, because your best tool is your team at their best.
Welcome to the 85%. This is Mark. I'm full transparency. I'm a Clarion employee, but I'm also a volunteer, a lieutenant here on the beautiful island of Anderson Island. And this is a podcast dedicated to the volunteer fire service. So I have a fantastic guest this month. It's John Buckman III, who I've known for like 12 years, I think, or something like that.
More than that, I bet.
But yeah, more than that. So I used to work in the books group, and Chief Buckman was at the time the state training director for Indiana, and I knew that he had a very a varied career, a storied career in especially the volunteer fire service, because the one thing I do know about him is he was the founder of VCOS, and I'll let him explain that. So because I will mess up your bio. So if you wouldn't mind, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, sir.
Mark, thank you very much for inviting me. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor. I think we've known each other for at least 20 years because, we went to Oklahoma many years ago and did 3 videos.
Yes.
On recruiting, retaining, and training volunteer firefighters. And I'm sure I know it sold 3,000 copies a month and all that good stuff.
Yes.
And now you buy the subscription service from Fire Engineering, you get all the videos for free. So good marketing thing for them. So
yes.
And I do get a little royalty check once in a while, but I've been in the fire service for 55 years.
Wow.
For those that are older here, you may remember the Plectron battery pack. It was the radio that you alerted. It was about 3 inches tall and about 8 inches long. I bought it myself in 1970. Mark,
wow.
It is beside my bed and it still goes off. 55 years old.
Wow. It still works.
You look at pager, it still works. You look at pagers, you look at all the cell phone technology, all that stuff. But the people in Overton, Nebraska, who made the Plectron radios could not transform into pagers. They had a couple pagers and they just didn't work well. But that was one of the things of like, man, you got to have a radio because you carried it with you.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this device you carried with you when you went, not like clipping your belt or clipping your pager on your belt in the morning. Uh-huh. So when I look at where I've been and how I got to where I am today, sitting here talking to you, I am one of the luckiest persons on earth. When you asked me to do this, I started thinking about the people who influenced me, going back to my fire department and Lester Garrett, who has been on 60 some odd years. He doesn't make runs anymore, but he does show up once in a while. But he was the fire chief before me, and he was one of those people that trained me. Jerry Compton, who was a fire chief at German Township Fire Department also, he was my sponsor. When you had people under the age of 21, you had sponsors. And so Jerry was my sponsor. And what he was supposed to do was keep me out of trouble and protect me so my parents felt safer. And so at that time, when at the German Township Fire Department, like many fire departments in 1970 and before, there was beer in the fire station. So we young people could not be in the fire station without an adult present because it was in the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. You paid $0.25 and you had a bottle of beer or a can of beer. And so, you look today and think, oh my gosh. I mean, there are guys back in those days who made runs and they'd had a few too many beers, but they still drove those trucks. And thank God nobody ever got killed. But, so those two people, Lester Garrett and Jerry Compton, really got me going. Jerry is the one who taught me about training and how important training was. And I think that spills over even still today as I'm sitting here talking to you, and we're going to talk about training at some point in time. But I want the audience to know that it's not about what you know as much as it is about who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to get out of your fire department and go meet people on other fire departments and ask them questions. And so when you look at the future of the volunteer fire service, we have some serious, serious problems. There are fire departments that are highly successful, have lots and lots of members. And I will tell you, most of the organizations that I talk to that are highly successful always come down to the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It is quality leadership. People who understand how to manage people. I will tell you that for the first 10 years, I was fire chief for 35 years. For my first 10 years, I was horrible at people management. I am not ashamed or afraid to admit that. I then went to a program put on by a person, an international speaker named Zig Ziglar out of Houston, Texas, who has sold like 3 million copies of books and stuff like that. And then I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And then the final person that was a guy named Dennis Waitley, who wrote the original Psychology of Winning. And I actually got to meet him. I hired him and brought him to Fire Rescue International to be the keynote speaker. Got to go to dinner. Mark, he is 94 years old, and he is the most positive person I have ever met.
Wow.
He's had cancer, I think, 6 times. And he still gets up every day. The first time he's had cancer, they did the treatment, said, well, we're going to take you to a nursing home. He goes, okay, got to go to nursing home to get rehab and get out. And then, he said, and then I'll get out. And they said, well, you probably are not going to get out. And so they took him into the nursing home and put him in bed, and they handed him the remote control. Gave this to him and said, here's what you do. And he said, what? You watch TV? He goes, no, I'm not staying in bed. I'm not going to watch television. I'm going to get up every morning, shave, shower, go down for breakfast, come back, and I'm going to start working. 6 months later, he checked himself out of a skilled nursing facility.
Wow.
How many people do you know that have ever left a nursing home? Much less being in a skilled nursing facility. And no, they don't leave there. And he just finished, I'll say 5 years ago, he finished the 2nd edition of Psychology of Winning. 2 great books. The first is audio tapes. That's how old it is. And it's now available, on the internet. And then the second one is, he has paper books as well. But I would encourage people, you want to learn about how to make a difference in people, buy the book, the revised, updated Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley. The Zig Ziglar stuff is great. Dale Carnegie book, I read that book. Gary Ludwig, former fire chief in Champaign, Illinois, he and I read that Dale Carnegie book every year to refresh our minds on how to deal with people. And that's what changed my way of dealing with people after being fire chief for 10 years. I was like a bully before. I just tell the volunteer to go do it and expect them to do it. That doesn't work today.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are, it's not going to work today. So I'll shut up for a minute, Mark.
No. I think it's amazing. I could listen to you talk for hours. So, because you always have super insightful things. You mentioned that this doesn't work today. Like obviously you've seen, because of your vast experience, you've seen an evolution of the the volunteer fire service. How, in your mind, how has it changed, or what do you think the big changes are?
Wow. I mean, let's go back to Benjamin Franklin in 1736 when he formed the first volunteer fire company. Mm-hmm. What was the purpose of that? It was to prevent fires.
You weren't on that department though, were you?
I was not there.
Okay.
I did not drive a steamer. I did not have any horse-drawn apparatus, and we did have air packs when I joined German Township in 1970. 2 air packs, Scott air packs with steel bottles. 2.
That's pretty progressive though for the 7.
For a fire department in 1970. Yes, and I will tell you, in 1968, German Township Fire Department was featured in the IFSTA ground cover firefighting book. So that was a thing that Jerry Compton got started. We talked about tanker operations and how to do tanker operations and photo tanks. We believe that we invented the photo tank hinge that allowed it to fold up flat.
Oh,
One of our firefighters, Wayne Herman, was a machinist at Whirlpool Corporation, and he did that so the photo tank would fold flat so you could get it on the truck. And of course, he didn't patent it or anything like that. And then photo tanks whoever took off with it and made a different hinge or whatever. But Wayne Herman we had photo tanks before anybody, because we have Anchor Supply here, which had tarpaulins. So they went out there and said, here's what we want. We want a swimming pool. It's going to be 10 foot by 10 foot. It's 30 inches tall. Can you build us the swimming pool, the balloon, so to speak, to fill it up? They go, yeah. So they actually made it, and they made several of them for us over the years. And so we took it out, took some rope, tied it around a steel frame, and then started using tankers. And we still use tankers today at German Township. Half of our district has city water with hydrants, and the other half does not. We are a 36 square mile area, a suburban. 80% of our district does not have sewers. Mm-hmm. So we have houses that sit on acres. We just had one of our houses sell for $1 million about a year ago, and I'm like flabbergasted. We do have some property for sale in our German Township, and it is for sale for $4 million. It started at $8 million. This place has garage for 36 cars. It is like 10 acres, and it was, so it's like amazing that this guy has had some financial problems, and used to have 24-hour security. We had President George H.W. Bush there, General what was his name? One of the Skorkoff. Can't remember his last name.
I totally know exactly.
General Schwarzkopf was there. Mitt Romney was there for fundraisers. Dan Quayle was there quite a bit. Actually, when you look at when Mike Pence was sworn in as vice president, the owner of this house, he was right behind Mike Pence on the stage.
Wow.
Not in the crowd, but right behind him. So that costs a lot of money to get there. And but so that property's for sale. It used to be $8 million. I think now it's down to $4 million. But 36 cars. He did all kinds of horses, coal mines, meals ready to eat, all kinds of different businesses. And so that's one of the properties in German Township.
Wow, that's awesome. So, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but so you are. I know that you're the founder of VCOS. So, what led you to say, hey, we need this, and I guess what is the main focus for VCOS? I know it's probably evolved a little bit over the years, or maybe it hasn't. I don't know.
It has evolved over the years, and I will tell you. So here's my transition. I was a member of the IFC, and they put out a notice that they were going to reform the volunteer committee, and that they were going to be meeting in Loudoun County, Virginia, where Billy Goldfeder was the director. And so I went to my board of directors and said, can I go? They had no idea what they were doing when they said, yes, you can go, and we'll pay for it. Because now that's where I went. Billy Goldfeder then became a mentor. He is still a great friend today, has helped me immensely over the years. But so that's how I got involved in the committee. So Billy was the chair until I think it was like 1990, 91. And then I became the chair of the committee. And then we needed to have some formal authority. As a committee, you don't have any formal authority in the International Association of Fire Chiefs. You are appointed by the president, and you can be unappointed by the president. So the decision was made to do not a ballot, a petition, to form a petition. That's the rules. You got to have so many active people sign the petition. It's presented to the board of directors. They put it by the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, and then a section was formed. Now, how did we get that through? Because the board of directors of the IFC at the time was a totally career. They had no volunteers in there, and they really didn't like volunteers much. Billy and I went to every board meeting and sit in the outer ring to listen to what they say. We had a Chief Dave Bibber from the New England division was one of those guys. He would take us out at break and say, guys, if you want to get this across to us, change your direction a little bit. He gave me and Billy some great advice on how to get the board of directors to approve some of the things we wanted. One of those was the FLSA document. Back in those days, FLSA was a new thing in the fire service where you're paying people and have to make sure that you don't get into the overtime issues. And so he helped us get that through. And then we got $50,000 to hire lawyers to write that document. It is still available today on the IFC website, and it is still valid. We just had it reviewed about 3 years ago, and the attorney said nothing has changed, that you need to update this document. But if you're a fire department, start thinking about hiring people to staff during the day, staff at night, weekends, so on and so forth. You need to understand how FLSA impacts your payroll and what you can pay for and what you should be paying for. And so that was one of the big things that we got started. And then we had our first official meeting in St. Louis. And I would tell you, there was probably over 200 people there, and I lost control. I'm going to tell you some of the bad things I did also. I lost control. I'm trying to get the agenda, out and so on and so forth. We're in a big auditorium. They're all sitting there, and they all start yelling. And Mike Chiaramonte from Lynbrook, New York, he got up, and I don't say literally pushed me out of the way, but literally he moved me off of the podium and said, guys, sit down, shut up, and listen to what he has to say. Because most of the audience was from New York. A big part of them was from the East Coast. And so he saved me, literally saved me from, just having total destruction, and we would have failed in getting it. So we got it started. Then we, we're charging dues of like $10. And then I think today the dues are like $35. So we're 1994 to where we are today. And we have over 2,000 members. We do good things, but Dave Bibber is another one of those people. But how we got the IFC board to accept the volunteer committee's request to be a section was, again, somebody else that helped me. His name was Chief Luther Fincher. He was the Metro section fire chief, and he was from Charlotte, North Carolina. When the Metro chiefs asked 2 years before to form a section, I endorsed them. John Buckman endorsed him as the volunteer committee chair. And Luther remembered that when we asked to be a section, and he came to me and said, how do I help you? So we had a plan. He helped us get it passed, and the section was formed. But again, going back to the point of, it is about who you know as much as what you know. When I go way back to, some of the people, and some people will know names like Jack Snook, who was out of Oregon, who wrote the book Recruiting, Training, and Maintaining Volunteer Firefighters. We had him in Evansville to do a class. I went up to him after that class and go, Jack, we do things better than what you're talking about. And he said, well, show me. So we showed him, and then he allowed me to help him rewrite or update the third edition of Recruiting, Training, and Maintaining Volunteer Firefighters. So that was my first exploration into writing. And Big Ed McCormick, I shouldn't say big, Ed McCormick from the International Society of Fire Service Instructors is another guy. I don't know why he liked me, but he did. When FDIC was in Cincinnati, I was on the main stage 3 times. Nobody else in those 10 years was on the stage 3 times other than the elected officers. But he liked me, and so he helped me again get into doors, help write things like that again allowed me to, I say, influence where we are going and what we are doing here. So let's go back to your question about the volunteer fire service, how it's changed since Benjamin Franklin. Today, it's I would tell you, I don't think the volunteer fire service has changed enough. I think we still use some of the Ben Franklin model, neighbors helping neighbors. And most of the time, we don't even know our neighbors. And the young people today are impatient. They do not want to wait. Chief Brunacini had a cartoon in one of his books, and it had a guy with all kinds of jewelry hanging all over everywhere, returning his application to get on the fire department. And he asked Brunacini's secretary, says, "Well, when do I get to be chief?" And it's like, and that's the attitude today of the younger generation. May not be when do they get to be chief, but when do they get to be an officer? When you look at how do you deal with the young people today, number one, you have to be nice. If you yell at them, they're not going to be happy and they're going to quit. If they are not happy, they are going to quit. It's that simple. They do things that make them happy and that they think will pay dividends for them in the future. Many of the young people today, both men and women who join the volunteer fire service, do it because they want to do it as a career. Obviously, in the more rural areas, yes, they will do it more to be a volunteer, but the general drive is, I want the job. And of course, when they do that, in many cases, we lose them. So you just have to accept the fact that some cases you're a training ground. I can tell you, I'm extremely proud of the fact that the Evansville Fire Department, which is next to us here in Evansville, is a 272 member career fire department. The fire chief came from German Township.
Oh, fantastic.
He started on my department, and they are a union department, and he is now the fire chief. And so proud of him. He's done good things up to this point. And I'm also, pretty proud of the fact that, hey, we influenced him. And he recognizes that. He admits that, hey, if it wasn't for some of the things we were taught at German Township, I wouldn't know anything about how to be a leader.
That's the same. So my little, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but my little department. So I moved here 5 years ago, and because of influences like you and quite a few other people, I could go on a giant list. I'm like, I can volunteer now. So I joined here, and I live on Anderson Island, Washington, which it's otherwise known as heaven. It's amazing. It's an amazing place. I love it. But we, in a weird way, we are like this tiny little, like, it's, I feel like in some ways live in the 50s because you're forced to be a tiny little community. So in a way, I feel like maybe this is what the volunteer service was like 40 years ago, maybe. But it's like neighbor helping neighbor, like you mentioned. We know all the people, but I'm really proud because similar thing, like local departments, a lot of people, they come up and they turn 16. We have a recruit program. They become cadets, and they go up and a lot of them move off the island. Little kids move off the island, and they go to other departments, and that's just part of the thing, So I think it's really makes you proud to go, oh, we're helping train the next. We have a cadet right now who just got a job. We have a little bunk where they can stay, and he's been living there, and he's moving off, I think, next week to go get a real job. So it's pretty awesome. Sorry, interrupt. Go ahead, sir.
No. And that we should be proud of that. Mm-hmm. That's our job as a leader, to develop our people that work for us. Mm-hmm. And I say work because it is work. It should be fun, but humping hose or putting hose back on a fire truck is hard work. It's not fun to do that, but you got to do that. So you can't do all the fun things. You got to do the hard work as well, and which means coming back to the fire station, washing the fire truck, checking all the gear, so on and so forth, getting ready for the next run. That's not fun stuff, but it's got to be done. And if you're truly in the fire service for the brotherhood, sisterhood, then you have to do the hard work. If you're just what I would call, and many people call this group that, the t-shirt firefighter, who shows up and wears the t-shirt, and here it is, I'm a firefighter, I'm a member of this fire department, but they don't do anything. Have young people that say, oh man, I've been on 2 years and I've made like 5 fires. I go, really? Awesome. Tell me how many times you've been on the first in hose line, either the nozzle or backup. Well, I haven't done that. I said, so you really have not been in a fire. because the second line, third line are doing external operation, tactical things. That's not what it's about. When you've told me you've been on the first nozzle 5 times, then I'm going to say you got some experience. It's minimal, but you got experience. You just got experience making runs now. Now, we need those people. We need people to obviously do the exterior things, control utilities, ventilation, forced entry, ladder work, searching, that sort of thing. But what I wanted, I was asked this by John Salka, FDNY, who's written a couple books for fire engineering, Clarion. We were talking one day and he said, what do you want from one of your firefighters? And I said, I want them to be able to get dressed, pull the hose off the truck, get to the front door, get in the front door, and do a search, complete the primary search of that building, and do all that in under 3 minutes. He said, then that's what you have to train them to do. Because if you say, well, I want you to do that, and you don't train them, they're not going to meet your expectations. When they do that and meet your expectations, you have to congratulate them. Again, our young people today have been, it goes back to the time my granddaughter, who's now 24, this is probably 20 years ago, at the end of her T-ball year, she was very shy, so she was the last one to go up to get a trophy. Everybody got a trophy except Maddie. They were one short. And it devastated her that she didn't get a trophy. Now, they eventually got her one, but think about that. And so the young people today, if you did that to them, they're going to quit. And I know we don't do that stuff on purpose, but we need to say thank you. We need to pat them on the back. We need to give them recognition, whether it's a certificate, a job shirt, or they earn this stuff. The more runs they make, they earn additional things. They may get new gear instead of hand-me-down gear. They may get a new helmet. It costs money to run a volunteer fire department. You have to tell the public it costs money. When you look at, again, what you're doing, I'm just going to look at my notes here. One of the things I said or made a note of today is you have to tell the elected officials publicly how good you are. But if you are struggling, you have to tell them as well. As the fire chief or the leader of the department, you cannot be hiding the information from the public that you're struggling. And if you're successful, because you've got plenty of people, but here's what I ask you to measure your success. Every fire department, volunteer staff department, here's how I would say you measure success. 6 qualified interior structural firefighters make runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You cannot fight structure fires with 70-year-old people. It's ridiculous to make them do that. I just had a person who's 74 years old. I'm at a line of duty death funeral when he goes, and this was back in December, he said, I'm giving this up at the first of the year. I'm resigning as a firefighter. And I thought, you're 74 years old. You should have resigned as a firefighter about 9 years ago. Can you still go and help? Absolutely. Can you refill bottles? Can you start the generator? There are things that the older people can do. I will tell you, at a structure fire a month ago, I ended up being not safety officer, staging. I was the staging officer. I parked myself right on the street out front, told command I'll be staging officer. Everybody came to me. I gathered them together, made sure they all had tools, groups of 2, so on and so forth. When command needed resources, he did it. I'm 72 years old. I'm not going in the burning building. I don't want to. I don't even have gear. But there are things that you can do. There's an article in Fire Engineering this month about using the older people, and how to use them and do command things. Imagine taking an older volunteer has 20 years of experience coming to a run and helping command run that incident based upon their experience. Wow, I read that article and thought, wow, that is a great concept. I had not thought about that. I'm giving that Arthur credit. I can't remember his name, but it's the Volunteers Corner this month in Fire Engineering. And so, that's the kind of things that we got to do. We got to think outside the box and figure out, how do we use the volunteers who want to be a volunteer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is great. No, this reminds me of, so there's a gentleman, he's not going to watch this, so I'll say his name's DB, and this gentleman is, he's latter half of his 70s. And this guy is amazing. Ex helicopter pilot in Vietnam, ex colonel, this guy's like my hero. He's amazing. I like just sitting next to him and just talking to him. And I know, it bothers him a lot because, he was, ex marathon runner and stuff. And he's getting up there, and the guy could still take out half the department if he wanted to, but he knows that he's not, we're not going to throw him in a fire, but he's always there, and it's like anything he wants to do, I'm like, let's do. So when we do drills, I typically, and it's like, okay, let's, you're the IC or you are safety. Well, whatever, because the amount of the thing that boggles my mind is the amount of experience. I just like to listen to him talk because I learn something every time I talk to him. And he's amazing. But you're right. Like, I'm 55, and I broke my back a couple years ago. I fell off my roof. I know you have back issues too, and I'm still in okay shape. But if it's me or someone, this 23-year-old that we should probably be sending the 23-year-old in the fire, because if something happened, I always hate saying that because I'm willing to go in there and take care of business if I need to, but in reality, what's the best thing for the citizen and for the and the best possible outcome? Maybe it's sending someone a little younger in there to the fire.
Well, nothing you say is 100%. There are exceptions to every statement that I said. You shouldn't be fighting interior fires at 72, 74 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There are exceptions to that. A volunteer firefighter in English, Indiana was 84 years old. He just got an award. And they told me he did not look 84. And again, like your guy, he could probably run circles around many of the younger members for stamina and that sort of thing. So there are exceptions to the rule, but I'm still, and if let's just say you're there and you're not really normally going inside, but if there's somebody in there, then you're going to go inside.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty simple, but you have to be ready. You have to be trained in order to do that. And so, but here's my point. I will go back to 1979. I put 9 firefighters in the hospital on one fire. It was a closed tavern, closed for the day, structural collapse. We were as far away from the hospital as from my district. Come to find out, at the end, we weren't even in German Township's district. We were across the line. So I injured 9 firefighters out of our district. We called mutual aid, and guess who we never called? We never called the home department because they're in another county and they're not part of the move up. But my point is, I have told this story. I have one slide before the structure collapsed, and I tell people I was not qualified to be the incident commander. I had no experience. Here I risked my firefighters' lives for a building that burned to the ground. Insurance company rebuilt it. It's still a tavern today, and it's still in business today. I would have killed 9 firefighters for nothing because the property owner had insurance. Let's look at today's risk. There probably will be some people that watch this that maybe have the big box warehouses, mega warehouses, 300,000 square feet or bigger. I was just on the group that wrote the report on the Walmart warehouse in Plainfield, and I will tell you, we're going to tell you, if there is smoke, get out of the building. The sprinkler system is not going to control it. You're not going to know what to do, and it's going to overwhelm you. This Plainfield fire was a fully career fire department with close to 2,000 firefighters available for mutual aid, and it burned to the ground. Two firefighters went through. Two firefighters had Mayday. I won't tell you the story because the guy who had declared the Mayday was a deputy chief. I've known him for years, good officer. Got confused, couldn't find his way out because of wet smoke. But he said, "I thought about saying goodbye to my kids for a building, for a building." Do you think Walmart stock went up or down the next day because of this fire?
Yeah.
It did not. I might be getting you in trouble here with that statement, Mark.
Oh, that's okay. Or
it didn't make a difference
Yeah.
in their stock. So again, they did business, continue to do business. That report will be out. We're waiting on it now. It should be out any time, and we encourage you to get it and read it. And if you have big box warehouses or mega warehouses, and learn from it and use some of the tactics that we talk about in there.
Yeah. Okay. So that does. You brought up a point about, you said not you didn't feel qualified. So this brings up a thought for the volunteer service, right? So we, like our department, we meet. I think we do a really valiant effort at training, but it's tough, So we meet on Tuesday nights for a couple, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And then we, like right now, we do various other things. Like right now we have some people going through Fire One. So we meet on Saturday mornings, to do stuff. But that's not year round. And then we have like an ENT class going, so they meet other days. But generally it's Tuesday. So you talk about the challenges you've had, because training people to get them proficient and qualified with limited, these are all volunteers, right? So most of us have jobs, and so that you feel comfortable when you show up at that, whatever it is, whether it's house fire or it's the big box store. I'm on an island, so it's all just houses, but we show up at that fire, like we get one on average, like one a year, or one every, it's been a couple. So, we do a whole bunch of EMS calls because it's a retirement island basically, but once a year we show up and we need to be proficient. I think we do a great job for what we have on it, but it's a challenge. So how have you approached that challenge, or how do you tell people to approach that challenge?
Well, one of the things that I think we could do differently is when you have that Monday night training, train for 6 people. You're probably going to fight a fire for the first 15 minutes with 6 people. You don't have mutual aid if you're on an island. It's your department or none. But many times we'll have 9 or 10 people show up for training, and we'll do tactical things for 9 or 10 people. Well, that's not what we do in reality. But so the question becomes again, I'm going to go back to what John Salka asked. What do you want your firefighters to be proficient in? He said good, but I'll use your word proficient, because that's what we want. I want to say we got to extricate this door and not worry about, can you find the tool? Can you get it connected? Can you start the power unit? Because I've taught you repeatedly how to do that. That's what gets us into, trouble is not the right word, but it gets us into trouble with our attitude. I don't need to do that 10 times. I did it once, so I know it. Well, let's do it blindfolded and see if you can do it blindfolded, because when you make that run, we'll just say extrication, and there are people in that car and they can't get out, adrenaline starts pumping through your body, and I'll just say this, you go blind. You can't see stuff because the blood has risen and put pressure on your eyes, and you don't see the obvious. And you're not a critical thinker, so you can't stop and go, wait a minute, back up. Let's think this through. And so it's like, train them on how to get the unit started, how to hook the hoses up. Because once you do that, the actual tearing the car apart most times is easy. Train for what you do. Don't train for what you think you're going to do. Train for what you do. If you only have a house fire once a year, and I will tell you, Carthage, Indiana, department's got a great training facility. Go look them up. They got good leadership, got all kind of multi-purpose training center. Haven't been there for about a year, but they hadn't had a working fire in their district in 3 years. 3 years. Now they had working fires, but they were all mutual aid. So, but you got to decide on what it is we want them to do. I can tell you, and I can send you this if there's a way for you to upload it, a firefighter task book that we developed when I was state fire training director. It says, here are the things that you guys have told us that you want to be able to do. Well, here's a skills checklist for those skills. And so, you can use that as a sample of what you could create in your department, but make your training relevant. The volunteers the young people today, they want training that is relevant to the job. Yes, if you had access, my department, we had access. We don't have an aerial ladder. We haven't needed an aerial ladder, maybe once every 5 years. But there are aerial ladders that are both on each of our mutual aid departments. So we would have the aerial ladder come over once a year. Why would we do that? Because they thought it was fun to set that aerial up and go all around and flow water. So we let them have fun. And those nights were like, oh man, lots of people showed up for training that night.
Yeah.
The other thing I would tell you is food. There's several. I've heard this from lots of fire chiefs. He or she only shows up on food night. Okay, then have food night more than once a month. If that's what attracts them, you have to do something to attract them, because they have a choice. They can go to their kids' baseball game, or they can come to fire department training. The other thing about training is you got to be flexible. You can't just say we're going to train on Monday night. I was invited to do a program about 100 miles west of me here, over by St. Louis. And when I went there and started talking about some things, we asked a question like, well, when is training? Oh, it's Wednesday night. I said, so what about the guys and gals who work second shift? He goes, we train on Wednesday night. I said, how do they get training for people that work second or third shift? He goes, they don't. And I thought, man, oh man. I mean, number one, you got a safety issue. And number two, you're putting their life at risk as well as yours. It's just not worth it. So, but they weren't flexible. Most of our training can be done. Mark, you and I go down to the fire station and we can practice putting on an air pack. We can practice getting dressed. We can practice pulling a hose to the front door, and that sort of thing. And only 2 people. You don't have to flow water to practice getting the hose off the truck and to the front door. Flowing water is easy. That's the easy part. Pump operator charges the line. You bleed the air off. You got water. You go in. That's easy stuff. But the hard stuff is making sure you don't dump all the hose right out off the truck into a big old pile of spaghetti, and he or she can charge the hose line, and it never gets water to the nozzle. So you got to look at what you want your people to do, and then train them to be proficient. And to be proficient, it takes at least 10 times. Mm-hmm. And you can't do it 10 times once a year, because that ain't going to work either. You're going to have some kind of repetitive training, some kind of check off that says they did it. And so when they meet the skill, check it off, congratulate them. They get a t-shirt, they get a sweatshirt, they get, whatever. When they get all that task book done, and motivate them. Most of our young people are motivated externally more than they are motivated internally. And you can gripe about it all you want, but the young people are not lazy. I hear old guys, and it's guys, sorry ladies, and it's not you. The old guys just gripe and complain about the young people are lazy. They're not lazy. I'll take one of my captains on German Township. I actually made a PowerPoint slide up for him, and of all the things he does, all right, so he's a full-time career firefighter. He works overtime at the ambulance service. He has his own construction business. He makes money. He works part-time for some other contractors. He wants to play golf, fish, boat, and camp. He's now engaged, and he has a house. How can you say, and he's a captain on the fire department,
Mm-hmm.
How can you say this guy is lazy? And most of the young people are just similar to Alex, is that they have all these things they're doing. They're not like me. When I joined the fire department, it was the fire department or basketball or football or baseball, where they went at high school. But that's all the choices we had. Well, you have kids today have hundreds of choices of things to do, and you as a volunteer fire department have got to make sure that what you want from them is something that they're willing to do and something that they're going to have some fun at.
Yeah, that's great. So I love the fact that the focus is on the young people, because I too I cannot stand it when you're walking around in a group and people are like, oh, young kids these days. I'm like, I'll bet when they were young, those old people were saying the same thing about them. I mean, sure, the world may be changing a little faster because technology is but I don't think it's you can't just complain about the kids, right? It's our job as the elder statesman, right, or whatever you want to call us, as now the elder people in the fire department. It's our job to figure out how to connect to those young minds to get them motivated. It's not their job to, because I would imagine, I know that you started in the fire service when you were 3, but I imagine your first year or two, I mean, you didn't know anything. I learned something. Every day I walk in there and I learn something new every day, and it's taken me a little bit of time, and now I feel relatively proficient at it, but I still learn something every day, and it's taken me years and years. And so that young kid that's 18, that he or she, it's our job to figure out how to motivate them and keep them engaged in what we do.
There you go. You just said it. It is our job to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's our job. That's your job as a leader. That's your job as a mentor. I really did. When the mentor thing came up, I wasn't, and this was like 20 years ago, whenever that started, I wasn't a big fan of it. Well, I got to tell you, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Mentoring is the key to motivating these young people today. As you said a little earlier, sitting around talking to the old people. That's what mentoring is about. Sharing your expertise, I can tell you, we go back to my first 3 years on the job, Mark. I got put on probation because I took the nozzle out of one of the older firefighters' hands because he was doing it wrong.
Uh-huh.
It didn't matter that he was doing it wrong. It mattered that this young punk took the nozzle away from an older, experienced he wasn't even experienced, an older firefighter. But I got put on probation because of that. So I was a troublemaker in some cases.
That's
because
awesome.
I did training. I read books. The first book I bought was a book called Fireground Tactics by Mandy Freed out of New FDNY. Got to go. His class in Indianapolis was the first outside class I ever attended. And great book. Still got it today. I now have 5 copies of that book because as people die and retire, I'm the book collector. They will say, hey, I got these books. You want them? And so I've gotten some really cool books. I am a big reader. I don't read books front cover to back cover. I will pick up a book. Maybe I'll start on page 100. Mm-hmm. And when I get bored, I'll get done. I'll start next time. I might start on page 200 or 40 or whatever. And, so I'm sort of weird in that way, as I do read a lot of books. I read for an hour and a half last night. I read on 3 different books, and my wife just goes nuts. But we just got we did some remodeling in the house here. We had all new wood flooring, everything in the whole house, all wood flooring. We finally got my bedroom straightened up, and I got a rocking chair in there now, and I got lights so I can sit there and read before I go to bed. And the next thing I know, I'm looking down going, geez, John, it's been an hour and a half. You should have been in bed an half hour ago. But I am a big believer in reading. Bobby Halton's book is just, I bought that. I'm privileged to be the person who took the picture of Bobby Halton that he used for the last 5 years in his editor's corner.
Well,
but from a photography standpoint, that was truly an honor for me to be able to do that. And it was truly by luck. It was done in Vincennes, Indiana, where he came in to speak, and I was invited up by the union to come up. And so afterwards, I'm taking pictures of the husbands and wives that were there. And he goes, "Hey, can we take some pictures of me?" I said, "Sure." And then he liked them, and I gave him the rights to it, and rest is history. So I get to see that in the book. But I encourage you to get Bobby Halton's book, Editor's Opinion. Lots of good things. I encourage you to get Chief Brunacini's book on his volunteer corner. Not volunteer, I'm sorry. I forgot what they called Chief Brunacini's column every month.
Yeah.
Ronnie Coleman for the chief officers here. Ronnie Coleman has got a good book out there. And then Tom Brennan, another great leader that, you want something to inspire you. All of those books have stuff that will inspire you to become a better firefighter or maybe even a better officer.
Well, speaking of books, you just had a new book come out. Was it last month, or I haven't read it yet?
It's been out about 6 months.
Oh, has it been that long? Okay. Well, I haven't read it yet.
Fire Training Officer's Handbook.
Uh-huh.
I never can remember the title. I don't have a copy here on me, but it is a book by fire engineering. I am the third author. I do want to give credit to Eddie Buchanan and Bobby Drake. They were the first two authors, and I, not that I came on late, but I'm just saying that, I give them the credit. I sort of filled in the blanks and that sort of thing.
Chief Buchanan, I didn't realize how close you were until I read about it, and I'm like, okay, that may take you down a rung. Okay, there's a joke in there somewhere. I have to feel Chief Buchanan is a wonderful man, and obviously he took a lot of influence from you, so that's a good thing. So you were brought in, and what did you? I know that. So this was initially he had written the book, and then he decided to update it. But when he decided to update, he's like, okay, we need to kind of. He went a different direction a little bit, and so that's why he brought you in, I think, to kind of round it out. So what did you do in the book?
Well, you're right. Eddie wrote the Volunteer Training Officer's Handbook. That's what he had out. And it was more of a pamphlet-sized book. It was probably maybe a quarter-inch, half-inch thick. So this book is a Fire Officer Training Handbook. So I brought a perspective from a state training officer standpoint, what to do, how to do, those kind of things. And I also brought the small fire department. I do believe that small fire departments can have great training programs. They have to have everything goes back to who's the leader. And if they have good leadership that wants training, then they can build training centers. You don't have to have $1 million to build a training center. You can build things. You can start off with a couple shipping containers and create a good live burn facility that can challenge your people. They can be used for search and rescue. You can build the get stuck, the wire gets stuck in thing, kind of limited space when you go through a hole in the wall. All those things just take some guys and gals on a weekend to come together, have chainsaws, hammers, hammer guns, nails, that sort of thing, and a plan and some plans, and you can build it. We in Indiana stole from the state of Kentucky, fire rescue training program, their mobile training facility. And it's like a 2-story training tower on a trailer.
Oh, cool.
Now, you put it together, and so you had a window that was about 30 foot off the ground, so you could go climb in and out of that window. We had the Denver drill on it. We had so you could go in there and pull somebody out. You had steps on it, so you could advance a line up the steps or come in and advance the lines down the step. And it was a very good training tool. And it was built by one of my former firefighters, who just happened to be a good carpenter and had the skill, knew how to use a skill saw or chainsaw, reciprocating saw, and cut the stuff up, put it together, put it on a trailer. And we made 12 of them. And Kentucky, that is the one thing that in the state of Kentucky you have to use in order to become a firefighter, career volunteer. That's the minimum training the skills that are related to that portable training facility.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool.
if you go, I mean, it's on the IFC website, V2S website about those training props, or you can go to the Kentucky Fire Rescue Training Group and find the plans and that sort of thing. Because again, probably for less than $4,000, you could have that, and you don't need the trailer if you're building it for your own department.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be nice if you had a small slab of concrete to put it on, but don't have to have that. I mean, probably, one of the more interesting training programs facilities that I've seen is the Fire Department Training Network out of Shelbyville. They don't have a lot of concrete. They have the shipping containers of stuff that are on concrete. When you walk out the building, you're 8 foot from the building, you're now on rock. So you don't have to have all that. You're going to build a $5 million training facility, you're going to have blacktop and concrete. You build a $5,000 training facility, you're going to have rock and a small concrete slab. But it all depends on who you are. Does Indianapolis, Chicago want this small pad and a little bitty training prop? No. Indianapolis just finished their new training facility. So those are the kind of things that I brought to the book of, what works, how to work it, how do you find these kind of props, resources, things like that. So yes, I encourage you, if you want a copy of the book, send me an email, and because I have books here that are signed by all three of us, so we can do that. Now, if you don't want a signed copy, I got some of those, because if we sign them, they're harder to sell on eBay. So.
Yeah. Okay. So one question I always try to ask, and it's, I should have warned you on this one, but what I find is you meet any firefighter who has been, in the fire service for 5-10 years, like they always have at least one or two stories where you're like, that did not happen. There's no way that happened. And they crack me up. And without getting any HIPAA issues, or I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But tell us a story that you're like the one that when you sit down at the bar and you have your cup of coffee and you're like, okay, listen to this. Okay, so can you think of one of those by chance? Well, how about this? The other question I try to ask people is, do you remember your very first big call, right? When volunteer call? So.
Well, that would be 1979 with the closed tavern.
Oh, okay. Wow, really?
And that fire, the person operating the pump at the hydrant in front of the building said to himself, "Looks like we got this fire knocked." And that's when the wall came down, and then the roof came down, and I guess this is the one time we had a medical director, we had a doctor, and he told me, he said, "When you get a big fire, call me. I want to come." So as we're going to this fire, I said, "Call Dr. Edwards and tell him we have a big fire." It is the only run he made was this closed tavern fire. And obviously he is there to treat the patients a little bit more than you can, and really can't treat them anymore. But like I said, we are as far away from the hospital as we can be. And so, we only have one hospital in Evansville on the west side, and then we have one on the east side. So they all went to the same hospital, which created some problems there. But here, I just thought about, here's one. Okay. So this is a plastics manufacturer, and they have extruder machines. And so when they are done making this sort of thing, they put a 2-inch, 2-inch steel bar on the front of a forklift truck, and they use that to beat that hard plastic out of that extruder machine. Well, what if it misses? It missed. And I'm the first one to this guy after they dialed 911. First thing he said to me was, "Am I going to die?"
Ooh.
The rod is sticking out his back about 4 inches.
Oh.
And we had just got a piece of equipment called the slice pack. We had just trained on it. Mark, in all the years, this is the only run that device was used. So I told my assistant chief at the time, we got to cut this thing. We can't take him to the hospital on a forklift with that long 10-foot rod sticking out the front. And so it's like, okay, so we'll cover the guy up and do this. So every time we started the slice pack, which is quiet until you touch the metal, and then it made all kinds of buzzing noises and started flying sparks around, and this guy then goes nuts. Well, we can't have that. We can't have him jerking around and that sort of thing. And so we just, we did a second time and did the same thing. So I finally told the guy, I'm pretty blunt. If you don't sit your ass still, you're going to die right here. And I turned to Wayne and said, Wayne, cut it. I don't care what it takes. Cut it. Don't stop. So it was about 6 foot long. No, it wasn't that long. It was probably maybe 3 foot long. And we got him off the forklift into the ambulance, took him to the hospital, and they're moving him up to surgery as quick as they can. It wasn't a trauma hospital back in those days. But then our pager goes off and says, we want you to report to the hospital. The doctor wants to talk to you. What? So we get to the hospital, and this doctor comes out of the surgery. They take me up to the second floor, and a doctor comes out of the surgery room, and he goes, I need you to come back and smooth this off. Cut it again and smooth it off so I can pull it out of him. I go, that ain't happening, Doc. You're in a surgery room. We can't bring this equipment in here in an oxygen-enriched atmosphere. And he goes, okay. So he went back in and he pulled that out of that guy. Wow. And the guy lived. He went back to work. And it's like, oh, how? I mean, God was on his side, because as that device went through his hip, is in the groin area, and I will tell you, it's really close to his groin area. As it went through there, instead of it ripping stuff out, somehow or other, God let that thing spread out the vital organs, and it was doing that instead of just going through and ripping it apart. And like I said, the guy went back to work. We're all like, amazing. We're just like shocked. But so that's probably the biggest rescue run that I dealt with. And like it was one of those things like, you sit down and quit squirming around, or you're going to die right here.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it ended well. That's okay. Thanks.
It takes a while to rewind it. The older you are, got to rewind all that tape up there.
I know. So I know this. I was thinking about. I know you take a lot of photos. This is the first time I think I've seen you without a camera in your hand in forever, maybe ever, maybe the only time. But if someone wanted, do you travel around? Do you teach much these days, or are you?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
I'll be teaching tomorrow in Owensboro, Kentucky. 2 weekends ago, I was in Tennessee. So yep, we're still out there.
That's what I thought. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you, like to have you out to teach or anything like that, how could they get a hold of you?
Well, you can text me at 812-480-4339. People go, oh, don't give out your phone number. I go, what? The spammers got my phone number. How many of those do you get a day? But I say text me, because if you call me and I don't recognize the number, I'm not going to answer it. Or you can email me, jmbuckman3rd@gmail.com. Okay.
Well, Chief, I want to be cognizant of your time. I really appreciate you.
Well, we haven't talked about the VCOS yet. So.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, let's do that first. Let's talk about VCOS, because I was just caveat. I've been to it a couple of times when I was in the books group for Clarion or Penwell at the time, and it's a fantastic. Are you talking about the conference? Because I've been.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's. So tell me about VCOS.
The Volunteer and Combination Officer section, has been around since 1994, and the big thing that we have is Symposium in the Sun. It is in November. It has been sold out for the last 10 years. We have about 600 people that attend. That's the limit on the hotel space. We have multiple hotels, but the meeting rooms are limited to about 600 people. And we've had speakers from all different walks of life, fire service, non-fire service. We get good reviews, and we have some bad speakers. I won't tell you that we haven't failed, because again, I was given the opportunity, like by Ed McCormick, to be on the main stage at FDIC 3 times. Well, I want to do the same thing. I mean, we had a young person a couple years ago that was on the main stage, and one of my committee members came up and said, he didn't deserve to be up there. And I go, well, what was wrong with the presentation? Well, nothing. He just didn't deserve to be up there. I go, he's young. I want him to be up there. So we look to find young people who can present, who want to share their story. Now that is the point. It's about sharing the story. So, but the VCOS has numerous projects out there. The next big thing that we're doing is it's like in about a month, we have our first critical thinking academy. And we've developed a program that is 6 days in length. That's 2 weekends, take a couple months off, 2 weekends, 2 more weekends, and it's 6 days. We will be getting it endorsed with Columbia Southern University, so you'll be getting college credit. But we realize that the fire service does not do critical thinking very well. We're always in a hurry to make decisions. Sometimes we have all the information, sometimes we don't. But we're doing that. We have social media presence like everybody else on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's the 3 big ones. That's what the old guys use. I forget what the newest one is for the younger people, but we're on all the social media. We just hired an administrative officer that is helping us get things done that we haven't had for the last couple of years. The IFC's person quit and went to another job. So we're getting back to where we're getting things done. And, I will say, and I don't mean to say we don't pay attention to the volunteer fire service, but there's a group called the National Volunteer Fire Council that is totally dedicated to the volunteer fire service. It is still part of the VCOS mission, but we're looking at the combination departments that have a couple paid people and some volunteer staffing as well. How do we help them? And we have some programs out there. We have a labor management program that helps as you get bigger in a volunteer world or the career combination world where you have conflicts. And we have used the IFF and the IFC's labor management program as a model and created one to help the volunteers. So, those things that, those cost money. We do have some weekend seminars on recruitment and retention. But I would tell you the big thing is go to the Workforce Solutions part of the International Association of Fire Chiefs website, iafc.org, and you will see all kinds of training resources on how to manage and lead volunteers and career people. And they have mentoring programs and all stuff for education. And you can use it for officers' meetings, or you can just assign the officers to do it on their own at their leisure, so to speak. And when it's convenient for them, they can't all make an officers meeting, but you may have other things to talk about. The other thing I would tell you about meetings, if the meeting lasts more than an hour, I ain't paying attention. Mm-hmm. So if you're a leader and you have an officers meeting and it lasts 2 or 3 hours, guess what? You lost me after an hour. I don't care how good you are. You're not one of those people on the national news. You're not all pretty and got your hair combed, and probably my hair looks horrible, but what little hair I got. But that's Workforce Solutions is out there to do. The National Volunteer Fire Council has some great training programs as well. And right now, not sure what's going to happen with the federal grant program, but a lot of that stuff is funded through federal grants. And that's all now in jeopardy with I think they've fired 22 people from the United States Fire Administration, and they've now stopped the fire investigation part that's done by the Health and Human Services firefighter, and they've stopped the firefighter registry for cancer. We are being threatened with many of the things that have helped us get the fire service to where we are today. I know money is not totally the answer, and I'll go back to it's about leadership, but you got to have money if you're a leader and want to do some things. So look at that. If you're, pay attention to what they're doing to us in the federal government. Write letters. I will be writing a letter to the Homeland Security, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy. He's the one that controls this. I don't know he'll ever see my letter, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to tell him what I think about it, and I'm going to tell him why it's important that they restore these jobs and put these people back in their jobs. We are not the bureaucracy. We don't have is there waste in our programs? Yes. Find it and eliminate it.
Mhm.
Find it and eliminate it. So
Yes, okay. I won't comment because I don't want to get too political, but I agree with what you just said. The oh, so when is VCOS this year? When do you guys have?
ooh, it's like the second week in November. Starts on
Okay.
a Thursday, ends on Sunday at about 11 o'clock, 11 a.m.
Okay, so you just had it like 60 days ago, or 90
Yeah,
days.
we just
Yeah.
finished it. Yep. We're looking to do some different things this year. We might even have a country and western concert on Saturday
Really?
night.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep. So
The speaking of that, you got Chief Buchanan. You got he's got a new career as well, not new. He's done his whole life, but as a drummer for a country artist.
for Tony Jackson.
Yes.
And that's who we're thinking about having.
Oh, really? It is.
Yeah. So my committee just approved that yesterday. So now we got to get to moving and that sort of thing. Figure out a venue and figure out a cost and what we're going to charge people. But that's going to be something different that we've not had before. But we think it'll be good. And we do take risk with what we do because 50% of the people that attend Symposium in the Sun are repeat customers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do the same thing all the time.
Yeah,
just like FDIC International. You can't do the same thing because many of those people come back year after year. So you better have something different for them to attend.
It's a fantastic show. When I was there, obviously I was just a vendor at the time, but I would sneak in. I should have paid. Sorry. I would sneak into some of the presentations and stuff, and it was fantastic. It's a great show. So something to be super proud of.
And we are, this was I know I don't want to say something that's not politically correct, but these are one of our wild ass ideas. Fred Windish and I had this idea, said, hey, let's have a conference on leadership. And then we went to Dennis and Pam Brimlett that were running the Responder magazine at the time and said, hey, can you help us? And they said, yeah, we'll help you. So that's how we got it started. Oh. And then after about 5 years, they went on and did some other places, and we continue to do ours.
That's great. Okay. And I keep thinking of things. So you do for you have a podcast of your own that you do weekly, right?
We have a weekly webinar. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Weekly webinar. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, tell us about that. I'm sure, everyone knows about that already, but just in case.
We hope they do. We have a different audience. I shouldn't say we want to do it weekly, but sometimes we can't find the speakers, just like you have trouble getting somebody to commit to a certain date. Mm-hmm. We do it on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. They last about an hour. The one this week was I had Billy Goldfeder on, Brian Kazmerzak, and Jesse Marcotte, and it was a casual conversation. And I emphasize that, a casual conversation about why do we kill and injure firefighters the same way we did 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was a great conversation. It is recorded. You can view it recorded. It is free of charge. You do not have to be a member of the VCOS or the IFC. And I encourage you to go get it. Show it to your officers. Share it with them. Share it with anybody you think that might benefit. Because we still, today, you read the NIOSH reports from 20 years ago, we're still killing firefighters because they get ejected from vehicles. We're killing firefighters because the building collapses on them. We have 2 firefighters recently that were killed that were in the hot zone, had no job, but then the wall came down, but they were just standing there looking at the fire. And it's like, wow, we got to get people, when they say you're out of the building, get 30, 40 foot out of the building. You have no idea when that wall is going to come down. Mm-hmm. And the one guy was killed in the back, which was a 2-story building because it had a basement or 2 stories in the back. I knew him, and met him several times, and a good firefighter, just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and did not move away when it was a hoarder house in the first place, and then he didn't get out of it far enough out of it when the wall came down. It took his life. And so we still have those kind of things. That again, we have lack of incident command. People, the young, in most cases, the volunteer fire department. I will tell you, we have bad habits that we accept. I had a fire when I was working. One of my jobs was to respond to all firefight fatalities. And when I responded to this fatality, walked up to the chief and said, "Tell me what went on, chief." And he goes, "I won't use the firefighter's name. Firefighter Jones, not his real name, is a freelancer. We knew he was a freelancer, just like his father. The chief had declared a defensive attack, and he went inside the building, 50 feet inside the building. The coupling was right at the door, 50 feet for a defensive fire. It was a metal building that made porta toilets.
Oh.
We killed a firefighter for a business that made porta toilets. And, like I said, the chief told me he was a freelancer, knew he was a freelancer. And if you know people have bad habits, chiefs, officers, incident commanders listening to this, stop it. Mm-hmm. Don't allow it. It will be your worst day. When I say this, I will tell you the hair on the back of my neck still stands up from 1979 when Mrs. Bushel, you need to get up and get dressed. We need to go to the hospital. Your husband's been injured. Mm-hmm. Worst day of my life to have to go tell the spouses that. And I'm lucky. I didn't have anybody die. But I had people with back injuries and broken legs. My best friend had a titanium rod put in his leg. And it's like I saw the titanium rod. It's like, oh, my God, that's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. And so you do not want that responsibility to have to bury a firefighter when you could prevent many of them. Mm-hmm. You can prevent many of them. Don't allow people to continue to make bad decisions.
Yeah, good, very good advice. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Is there, anything?
You were worried about us only getting 20 minutes.
I know. No, I could talk to you for hours, but I know you got stuff to do. So, I guess any closing comments that, anything else that we didn't cover that you just thought maybe we should?
I will say this: have fun. I will tell you that I had to learn that the hard way. A guy named C.W. Metcalf, who we had at the International Association of Fire Chiefs twice. And C.W. wrote the book called Lighten Up. Mm-hmm. And he was the clown on Happy Days. And just sure as the devil. Yes. And what C.W. did was we became friendly, and he gave me this. And I am now known as the clown nose guy.
Oh, yes. We got the clown nose out.
And every time you have a problem, put this on. I did it 2 weeks ago in Tennessee, and the smiles on their faces, I said, that's exactly what CW said will happen. Uh-huh. And when you smile, you have good juices flowing in your body. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal to act a little bit silly, but have some fun. And you notice I could pull over here, thank gosh, and pick that right out of my drawer, because there are times I go, gosh, I wish I could get this, but can't always get it done. But wear the nose and put it in your car so you have trouble. I have people that tell me, I took it home, I put it on the monitor on my computer, and I said, whenever I have problems, I'll do it. Or I'll have people come to a seminar where they've already been once, and they'll have it in their pocket. And that is such an honor for me to know that CW helped me make a difference in other people's lives and having some joy. So have some joy, value your family, value your fire department, but laugh from time to time to make the world a better place.
Thank you, Chief. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully I get to talk to you soon.
In the firehouse, every second counts. The best tool for the job? A well-rested firefighter. Dreamseat firehouse furniture, built for durability, designed for comfort, because your best tool is your team at their best.